Marcus!
I heard my name being called, but I didn't respond. I just feel like strange things are watching me.
For years, he worked alone as an electrician, restoring power in abandoned buildings where no one was supposed to be. Empty hospitals, closed factories, places forgotten by time. He learned quickly that silence was never truly silence. There was only one rule he never broke, a rule passed down by someone who disappeared without explanation: never answer when someone calls your name. At first, it sounded ridiculous, until the night the voice knew things it shouldn't, things only he knew, things no living person could. This is not a story about monsters you can see. It's about what happens when something learns who you are and waits for you to respond. Stay until the end, because once the name is spoken, there is no turning the lights back on. The first time Marcus heard the rule, he thought it was a joke. He was 23 years old, standing in the lobby of a decommissioned psychiatric hospital in rural Pennsylvania, surrounded by peeling paint and the smell of mold that had lived in the walls for decades. The contractor who hired him, a man named Gerald with weathered hands and eyes that never quite looked at you directly, handed him a clipboard with the building layout and a list of circuit breakers that needed testing. Gerald told him the job was simple: go floor by floor, check the wiring, mark what could be salvaged, stay until the work was done. Then Gerald leaned in close enough that Marcus could smell tobacco and something sour underneath, and said in a voice that was too calm to be anything but serious that there was one thing Marcus needed to remember above all else: never answer when someone calls your name. Marcus asked what he meant, but Gerald was already walking toward the exit, boots echoing on cracked tile, and he did not turn around. The heavy door slammed shut, and Marcus was alone. He stood there for a moment, staring at the clipboard, then at the long hallway stretching ahead of him, lined with rooms that had once held people who were not allowed to leave. The windows were boarded up. The air was thick and still. Somewhere deep in the building, something metal creaked, a slow sound like a hinge giving up. Marcus told himself it was nothing. Old buildings made noise. That was normal. He had done this kind of work before, though never in a place this big, never in a place this empty. He flipped on his flashlight, adjusted the tool belt around his waist, and started walking. The first floor took 3 hours. Most of the wiring was shot, corroded by water damage and time. He labeled the breaker boxes, took photos for the report, and moved on. The second floor was worse. The ceiling had collapsed in several rooms, exposing rebar and rotted insulation. The air tasted metallic. His footsteps sounded too loud. It was on the third floor near the old nursing station that he heard it. A voice, soft, clear, coming from somewhere down the hall. Marcus. He froze. His hand tightened around the flashlight. He turned, slowly scanning the darkness behind him, but there was nothing, just empty doorways and shadows that did not move. He waited, listened. The building was silent again, except for the hum of his own breathing. He told himself he imagined it. Exhaustion. The acoustics of an old structure, his mind playing tricks. He kept working. But an hour later, it happened again. Marcus. Closer this time. Like someone standing just around the corner, just out of sight. He did not answer. He remembered Gerald's rule, even though he still did not understand it. He finished the third floor quickly, skipping 2 rooms he had planned to check, and headed back downstairs. His truck was parked outside, visible through the gaps in the boarded windows. He could see the outline of it in the fading daylight. He left the building at 6:30, locked the door behind him, and sat in the driver's seat for a long time before starting the engine. His hands were shaking, though he was not sure why. That night, he called Gerald. No answer. He left a voicemail asking about the rule, asking if Gerald had heard voices in that building, asking if this was some kind of test. Gerald never called back. Marcus got paid 2 days later. The deposit hit his account without explanation. No follow-up, no second job offer. He did not hear from Gerald again. But the work kept coming. Over the next year, Marcus built a reputation as someone who would take the jobs no one else wanted. Abandoned factories, foreclosed, schools, hospitals that had been closed for decades, places where the electricity had been cut off so long ago that no one remembered what the building had been used for. He worked alone, always alone, because that was cheaper for the contractors and because he preferred it that way. He did not have to explain himself. He did not have to pretend the silence did not bother him. And he followed the rule, even when he did not hear anything, even when the buildings were quiet, even when the voice never came. He followed the rule because something about it felt true in a way he could not articulate, like a law of nature, like gravity. The voice came back, though. It always did. In a textile mill outside Scranton, on the 4th floor where the looms used to be, someone called his name 3 times in the span of 10 minutes. He did not answer. He finished the job and left. In a shuttered hospital in West Virginia, the voice echoed through the stairwell, soft and pleading, like someone lost. He kept walking. In a warehouse in Ohio, the voice sounded like his mother, and for a moment, just a moment, he almost turned around. But he did not. He never did. He learned to recognize the pattern. The voice always knew his name. It never asked a question. It never gave a reason. It just called over and over until he left or until it stopped. And it always stopped eventually. By the time he turned 27, Marcus had worked in 43 abandoned buildings across 6 states. He had heard the voice in 31 of them. He had never answered. He told himself it was psychological. Isolation. The brain filling in gaps. The same reason people saw faces in shadows or heard footsteps in empty rooms. He told himself it did not matter what it was as long as he followed the rule. But deep down in the part of himself he did not talk about, he knew the truth. The voice was not random. It was not a hallucination. It was something else. Something that knew where he was. Something that waited. And the worst part, the part that kept him awake at night in motel rooms with peeling wallpaper and buzzing fluorescent lights, was that the voice was getting better at sounding real. It was learning. The call came on a Tuesday in late October. Marcus was sitting in a diner just off Interstate 81, drinking coffee that tasted like burnt plastic and staring at his phone when the number appeared. No name, no voicemail, just a callback prompt. He almost ignored it, but work had been slow, and he needed the money, so he answered. The man on the other end introduced himself as Roger Callahan, a property manager for a development company based in upstate New York. Roger explained that they had acquired an old textile mill near the town of Millbrook, a building that had been closed since the early 90s, and they needed someone to assess the electrical system before demolition. The job would take 3 days, maybe 4. The pay was good, better than good. Roger said they had tried 2 other electricians, but both had left without finishing. Roger did not say why. Marcus asked if the building had power. Roger said no. Marcus asked if he would be working alone. Roger said yes. Marcus agreed. The mill was a 4-hour drive north, through winding roads that cut through dense forest and towns, so small they did not have stoplights. Marcus arrived just before sunset, and the building looked worse than he expected. It was massive, 5 stories of red brick and broken, windows surrounded by a chain-link fence that had rusted through in several places. The roof had caved in on the western side, and the front entrance was boarded up with plywood that had warped and split from years of rain. Roger met him at the gate with a clipboard and a key. Roger was younger than Marcus expected, maybe 30, with the clean-shaven look of someone who spent more time in an office than on a job site. Roger explained the layout, pointed out the main breaker room in the basement, and handed over a building schematic that looked like it had been photocopied too many times. Roger told him the company would cover his motel, meals, and fuel. Roger told him to take his time. Roger told him to call if he needed anything. Then Roger left. Marcus stood in the parking lot, watching the taillights disappear down the access road. And then he turned to look at the mill. The sun was setting behind it, turning the sky a deep orange that made the building look like a silhouette, a shadow against the light. He could hear crows calling from the trees. The wind smelled like rain. He unlocked the front door and stepped inside. The lobby was larger than he expected, with a vaulted ceiling and a staircase that spiraled up to the 2nd floor. The floor was covered in debris, broken glass, pieces of drywall, old newspapers that had turned yellow and brittle. The air was cold, colder than it should have been, and it smelled like metal and rot. Marcus turned on his flashlight and started working. The first day was uneventful. He mapped out the basement, checked the breaker panels, and marked which circuits were still intact. The wiring was old, most of it from the 60s, wrapped in cloth insulation that crumbled when he touched it. He took photos, made notes, and moved methodically through the rooms. By the time the sun went down, he had finished the basement and part of the first floor. He drove to the motel, ate a microwaved burrito from a gas station, and fell asleep with the TV on. The second day was when things changed. He started on the second floor, working his way through what used to be the main production area. The space was enormous, a single open room the size of a football field, filled with the rusted skeletons of industrial looms. The windows were shattered and pigeons had nested in the rafters. The floor was slick with bird droppings and rainwater that had leaked through the roof. He was testing a junction box near the east wall when he heard it. "Marcus." He stopped. His hand froze on the screwdriver. The voice had come from somewhere behind him, near the center of the room. It sounded close, too close. He did not turn around. He did not answer. He kept working. The voice came again, louder this time. "Marcus, I need your help." His pulse quickened. He forced himself to breathe slowly, evenly. He finished labeling the junction box, packed his tools, and moved to the next section. The voice followed. "Marcus, please." It sounded like a woman now, young, desperate, like someone in pain. He felt the urge to respond, to ask what was wrong, to help, but he did not. He followed the rule. He worked for another hour, and the voice called his name 14 more times, always from somewhere he could not see, always just out of reach. He counted each one, marked them mentally, and kept moving. By the time he finished the second floor, the sun had set, and the building was dark. He used his flashlight to navigate back to the staircase, and as he reached the first floor, the voice spoke again. "Marcus, why won't you answer me?" He stopped at the bottom of the stairs. The voice was right behind him now, so close he could feel the words, like breath on the back of his neck. He did not turn around. He walked out of the building, locked the door, and sat in his truck for 20 minutes before he trusted himself to drive. That night, in the motel, he lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying the voice in his mind. It had sounded so real, so human, and for the first time it had asked a question that had never happened before. Marcus almost did not go back the next morning. He sat in the motel parking lot, engine running, staring at the road that would take him back to the mill. His hands were tight on the steering wheel. He told himself he could call Roger, say the job was too dangerous, that the building was structurally unsound. He could leave, find other work, forget the pay, but he did not. He needed the money, and more than that, he needed to know if the rules still worked. He drove back to the mill. The third day started the same as the others. He entered through the front door, checked his equipment, and climbed the stairs to the third floor. The space was smaller here, divided into offices and storage rooms that had been gutted decades ago. The walls were covered in graffiti, layers of spray paint and marker tags left by people who had broken in over the years. Most of it was unreadable, just shapes and colors, but some of it was names, initials, dates. He worked through the morning without incident. The wiring on the third floor was mostly dead, and he marked it as a total loss. By noon, he had moved to the fourth floor, where the air was thicker, heavier, like the building itself was pressing down. The voice started again around 1 o'clock. "Marcus." He ignored it. He was testing a circuit breaker when the voice spoke again, but this time it was different. Marcus Tillman. He froze. His full name. The voice had never used his full name before. "Marcus Tillman, I know who you are." His breath caught. He put down the voltage tester and turned slowly, scanning the room. Empty. Just broken furniture and water-stained walls. The voice continued. "Marcus Tillman, born August 14th, 1996. You grew up in Erie. Your mother's name was Linda. She died when you were 12. You blame yourself." He felt his chest tighten. His hands started shaking. The voice knew. Things it should not know. Things no one should know. You were there when it happened. You heard her fall. You did not call for help fast enough. You think about it every day. He wanted to scream. He wanted to run. But he forced himself to stay still, to breathe, to follow the rule. He did not answer. The voice moved closer, though he could not see where it was coming from. It sounded like it was inside the walls now, surrounding him. "Marcus Tillman, you are alone because you think you deserve to. You push people away. You work in empty places because you feel empty. You think no one will miss you if you disappear. He closed his eyes. His heart was pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. The voice was right. Every word was true. And that terrified him more than anything. Marcus Tillman, answer me. Just once. I can help you. I can make it stop. He wanted to. God, he wanted to. The loneliness he had carried for 15 years felt unbearable in that moment. The thought that something, anything, understood him made him want to give in, but he did not. He opened his eyes, grabbed his tools, and walked toward the stairs. The voice followed, growing louder, more insistent. Marcus Tillman, do not walk away. I know you. I see you. You cannot hide from me. He reached the stairwell and started descending, moving faster now. The voice echoed through the building, repeating his name, his full name, over and over. Marcus Tillman, Marcus Tillman, Marcus Tillman. He burst through the front door and into the daylight, gasping for air. He stumbled to his truck, threw his tools in the back, and drove away without looking back. He made it 2 miles before he had to pull over. He sat on the side of the road, hands shaking, and tried to calm down. He told himself it was just a voice, just sound. It could not hurt him. It could not touch him. As long as he did not answer, as long as he followed the rule, he was safe. But the voice had known his name, his full name. It had known things about his mother, about the day she died, things he had never told anyone, things he barely let himself remember. How? He did not have an answer. He sat there until the shaking stopped, and then he drove to a gas station, bought a cup of coffee and called Roger. Roger did not pick up. Marcus left a voicemail saying he needed 1 more day to finish the job. He did not sleep that night. He sat in the motel room with the lights on, staring at the wall, replaying the voice in his mind. He thought about Gerald, the first contractor who had given him the rule. He thought about the 2 electricians who had quit before him. He wondered if they had heard the voice too. He wondered if they had answered. He thought about going back, and he realized with a sinking feeling that he had to, not because of the money, not because of the job, but because he needed to finish it. He needed to prove to himself that the rule still worked, that as long as he did not answer, as long as he stayed silent, he was safe. The next morning he drove back to the mill for the last time. The final day was quiet. Marcus entered the mill just after sunrise, carrying his tools and a thermos of coffee he knew he would not drink. The building felt different in the early light, less oppressive, almost ordinary. He told himself that was a good sign. He climbed to the 5th floor, the last area he needed to check. The ceiling was lower here, and the rooms were smaller, divided into what looked like administrative offices. Most of the doors were missing. The windows were covered in grime so thick that almost no light came through. He worked steadily, methodically, testing circuits and labeling panels. The voice did not come. The building was silent except for the sound of his footsteps and the occasional creak of the structure settling. By noon, he had finished 3/4 of the floor. He was beginning to think the worst was over. Then he entered the last room. It was small, no bigger than a closet, with a single window and a rusted filing cabinet in the corner. The walls were bare except for a single piece of graffiti written in black marker across the far wall. It said, "Marcus Tillman was here." He stared at it. His blood went cold. The handwriting was not his. He had never been in this room before. He had never written his name on any wall. But there it was. He stepped closer, his flashlight illuminating the words. The ink looked fresh, not decades old, not faded. Fresh, and then the voice spoke. "Marcus Tillman, you found it." He spun around. The doorway was empty. The hallway beyond was dark. "Marcus Tillman, do you understand now? You were always going to end up here. This room, this moment, this is where you belong." He backed toward the window, his mind racing. The voice was wrong. It had to be wrong. He had never been here before. He had never written his name. Someone else had done this. Someone else knew. But the voice continued, calm and steady, like it was explaining something simple. "Marcus Tillman, you think the rule protects you. You think silence keeps you safe. But you were never safe. You were marked the first time you heard your name, the first time you listened, the first time you stayed." He felt the wall against his back. The window was behind him, glass cracked and filthy. He could see the forest outside, trees swaying in the wind. "Marcus Tillman, The rule was never about answering, it was about running. And you stopped running a long time ago. His chest tightened. He wanted to scream, to argue, to tell the voice it was wrong, but he could not speak. The words would not come. And then the voice changed. It stopped sounding distant. It stopped sounding like it was coming from the walls or the hallway or the air itself. It started sounding like it was coming from inside his own head. Marcus Tillman, you are not alone. You have never been alone. I have been with you since the beginning, since the first building, since the first time you heard your name. I followed you, I learned you, and now I am you. He pressed his hands to his ears, but it did not help. The voice was inside him now, speaking in his own thoughts, his own voice. Marcus Tillman, you do not need to answer. You already did. The moment you walked into this room, the moment you read your name on the wall, you answered. He felt something shift, a presence, heavy and cold, settling over him like a weight. He opened his mouth to scream, but no sound came. Out. The voice spoke one last time. Welcome home, Marcus. And then the silence returned. Marcus Tillman left the mill that day. He finished the job, filed his report, and collected his pay. Roger called to thank him, said the demolition would begin the following week. Marcus said nothing. He drove back to Erie and parked his truck in the driveway of the house he had grown up in, the house that had been empty since his mother died. He walked inside, climbed the stairs to the second floor, and stood in the doorway of her old room. He had not been inside in 15 years. He looked at the faded wallpaper, the dust-covered furniture, the window that overlooked the backyard where he used to play, and he realized, with a clarity that felt like falling, that he had been living in an abandoned place his entire life. The voice had been right. He had stopped running a long time ago. He sat down on the floor, back against the wall, and waited. He did not know what he was waiting for, but he knew it would come, because the voice had followed him out of the mill, it had followed him home, and now it was everywhere, in the walls, in the silence, in the space between his thoughts. It called his name softly, almost gently, like someone who had been waiting a very long time. Marcus Tillman. And this time, in the quiet of his mother's empty room, he finally answered. He whispered his own name back, and the lights went out.